Gotta go. Yeah, I'll call you back. I'm with that Realty.
In every real estate transaction, something comes up that the buyer or seller may have a question about. But in the heat of the moment, the question goes unanswered. Each episode, I talk with real estate experts and real estate vendors to provide a look at what goes on behind the scenes in the real estate world to get you answers. I blend in local Santa Cruz history, add some tips and tricks, all designed to help you be successful in your next real estate project. Tell your friends you can't talk right now because you are with the Realtor Lady. Welcome back to the Realtor Lady. I'm continuing my series with talking to realtors around the country. Today's guest is Jackie Baker. We talk about New Jersey. We talk about the weather, the difference in how people actually purchase in New Jersey. They actually use a realtor and an attorney, just besides all the other vendors that they hire to look at the home. Very interesting. Close to New York and Manhattan. She explains the connection there. Jackie was a great guest, as all my guests are, but this one is really worth some time. So I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. You are with the Realtor Lady, and I'm Michelle Replogle. And today I have a guest from New Jersey. Her name is Jackie Baker, and I'm so jealous of her easy name. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself and introduce herself. We're going to talk about the real estate market, and there's a couple things that are very similar despite us being so far apart. And then there are some differences. We're going to go into that and then just talk about some industry stuff that we've seen. We'll also touch on interest rates, which are they're in the news right now. So take it away, Jackie.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. This is fun. I love doing this stuff. So, and as you said, my name's Jackie Baker. I'm a real estate agent here with Coldwell Banker Realty. I serve the Bergen County, New Jersey area. So Bergen County, we're pretty much a suburb of New York City. So we're about 40 minutes outside of Manhattan. So this area is pretty desirable for people who work in New York City, but they don't want to live in the city. Bergen County also we're known for our great school systems and just some great towns here that if you're not into going to the city, there's some awesome towns with some great downtowns and fabulous restaurants and entertainment. So it's a pretty desirable, pretty expensive place in New Jersey to live. But that's the area that I serve.
Now, is your area like when we watch movies and people take the train from New York to their house? Is that kind of what it's like? Because I watch all these movies where they take a train into New York, and to me, it's like taking a train to another country, and they go from this like suburb to the big city.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. So the way you would access Manhattan from here, so you would there's two different train lines, and they go down you could either stop at Secaucus, and there's a light rail that runs you over to Penn Station, or you can go all the way down to Hoboken, where you can take the PATH train, and that train runs under the Hudson River and brings you to downtown Manhattan, down to Wall Street. So yeah, it is. It's like you're going to a different world.
How long does it take?
So from where I live, it's about 40 minutes, 40-minute commute by bus. A lot of people, like in my town, like I'm in the northernmost point in Bergen County. A lot of people take the bus from here. Bus could probably take you about 40 minutes, sometimes more, depending on traffic. But the further south of Bergen County you go and east, closer to New York City, it could be as little as 30 minutes. So, or even like 20 minutes. It's really not that bad.
It sounds so easy. Our biggest hub besides Santa Clara Valley and all the companies that are there, then it's Palo Alto and then it's San Francisco. But San Francisco can be really hard to get to from our area.
Really?
It's like an hour and 15 minutes, but it's not an easy drive. It's not like a straight shot. And if you want to take trains and planes and buses, it's just not easy, I think.
Yeah, well, our biggest issue here is the traffic. So if you do drive, like my husband commuted into Manhattan for a number of years, and the biggest thing is the traffic. You have to time it just right. So like he would literally leave the house at 6:30 in the morning just to get over the George Washington Bridge before all hell broke loose, and you're sitting there. If there's an accident, forget it. You could be sitting there forever. But that's the biggest thing is the traffic.
We have that here too. We have, and there's literally a mountain between us and Silicon Valley. So you have to drive over a mountain, and it's a 4-lane highway. And if you get in one spot and there's a backup, you're sitting. If there's a tree or a boulder or rock,
oh my God,
it's you're there till it's cleared.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Because here it would be a car accident or a broken down car that would be causing the traffic. We don't have boulders, so that's we don't have to worry about that.
And it's timing. And I just did a video on the different terrains of Santa Cruz. And basically I did a screencast of the area and why traffic is the way it is. And literally it's because we have a mountain or a hillside and the ocean. There just really isn't anywhere else to go.
Wow.
So you are stuck. And just to help people understand the traffic flow. And then timing, we all kind of live our life around the schools because the schools back everything up here. And then the traffic hours. So, it's all timing. You can deal.
Yeah.
Let's see. So your market, what's your median price there?
Now it's gone up. It's gone up a lot. So the median price is about, sorry about that. My phone. The median price point is about $550,000. But a lot of my clients, they're spending well over that to get a house here. Last year, and I'm sure you saw it out where you are, the prices have just been skyrocketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's unfortunate. We had, during the pandemic, we had a lot of people from Manhattan move they were getting out of the city. They're like, we don't want to be, near this virus. And, we weren't expecting that. It's like we knew that 2020 was going to be a strong seller's market in New Jersey anyway. They were calling for it because all the millennials were entering the buyer pool and, we're going to get ready. It's going to be a good year. But then you throw in the people from the city. Holy cow. These houses were selling for, tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes over $100,000 over asking price. And a lot of them were people from the city that they were just desperate. They're like, we want out. And they would pay anything because when you think about it, what they're paying in rent in Manhattan, coming to Bergen County to buy a house, it's a bargain. So that's what happened. Yeah.
So that's interesting. We have people move from San Francisco to Santa Cruz. They get a lot of the same benefits. Actually, the weather, I think, is a little bit more temperate here. It's not as cold. And they have a lot more fog, but they also deal with the same things that we do. Like we have a fair amount of homeless and kind of, property crime but it's all less to them. So what happened was when COVID came, they had already been looking, they had already been thinking about where they'd want to go. So we actually had just a quick jump right away of people who were already 1 foot out. And that was it. And so we had this little blip of just people just going crazy and people who didn't want to live in Santa Clara, which is also very impacted. And so people who were already thinking about it jumped that year. And then last year it was kind of settling in more, but it sounds exactly the same. It's so interesting.
Who'd have thought, right? That's crazy.
I think city life can be jarring, especially if you have children. I think people really are always kind of looking other places.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I helped a family move here from New York City last year, and their daughter was in high school. The son was entering middle school. And what they did during the pandemic, they left Manhattan. They're like, we're out. And they rented a home in this town called Leonia. It's just southern Bergen County. And they found me, and they bought a house last summer, and they were just thrilled. Because they're like, we have a yard. Look at this house. Comparing to what they were spending in the city. And like you said, and the kids too, they wanted that quality of life for their kids. So I was just so happy for them. And to this day, it's so funny. Before I hopped on today, she just sent me an email saying, we're redoing the kitchen. As soon as it's done, you got to come over and hang out with us. And, they're just so happy. They're so happy being where they are. So it's amazing,
Yeah, I was with clients last weekend. They moved from Campbell, Los Gatos, Santa Clara area, still tech hub, and they just felt like all the developments had just grown in over the top of them, and they just felt so crowded. And they moved to a kind of a more rural, I mean, whatever our rural area is, and they have all these wonderful neighbors, and they were just glowing. They were so excited. And that's
Yep.
after the initial move-in wore off, like for your client as well. It's like it's been some
Yeah.
time and they're still happy there.
They're still happy. That's what's important.
Let's see. Inventory lows. I think you have, what's your inventory like? Our inventory has ticked up in the last week. We're starting to see it come on.
Same here. I was saying just in the past couple of days, I'm starting to see it increase. Yeah, because we're literally sitting around our office and all of us agents are like, "What? There's nothing to show. There's nothing out here." It's so frustrating. But yeah, it's just starting to go up a little bit.
We had some stuff come on. And you know what was interesting? I have a coach and she is in Washington State, I think upstate. And I said, it's quiet. This is at the beginning of the week, I think. I go, it's really quiet. And I said, she goes, oh, we were always talking that it didn't really get going till Super Bowl. After Super Bowl was done, it seemed like that kind of, let's go. And it's like, that's kind of silly, but it seems to be true. And they keep changing the date of the Super Bowl. So what does that do?
Pushes our market. It pushes the start. That was the same thing with us. It's always the unofficial start of the spring market is after the Super Bowl. So I think we're going to see it really pick up in the next couple of weeks. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Because I got a lot of buyers that need a house. Like, please.
I have more sellers right now that are just trying to figure stuff out. Everybody's kind of in that. We've got tenants kind of.
Yep.
This is kind of the year. So that leads us to interest rates, getting kind of buyers and sellers to get going because this might be the year. And you said on the news today the interest rates had gotten, or you're talking with your lender?
I was talking with my lender just this morning, and she told me rates are at 3.75. That's for put 20% down, 30-year conventional. And she was so upset because she's like, I can't believe it's already up a point. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are they saying it may go over 4% this year? Because they were saying, oh, it shouldn't go over 4. She thinks it's going to go over 4%. And
wow.
Yeah. But listen, and as I said to her, I said, look, we were expecting this. We all knew this is coming. And honestly, I think it's needed, especially now. And like with what we went through this past year, we got to bring these prices back to a little bit of more normalcy here. I think these rising rates are going to, buyers are not going to be able to afford as much. So I think the sellers need to be prepared for that. You're not going to get as much over asking as you would have a year ago. Money is not cheap now. It was cheap a year ago, not now. So yeah, and I'm hoping for that it brings some normalcy back to our market because it's so hard. It's been so hard competing against 10, 20 other buyers that are bidding on the same house. I mean, that's how bad it was last year.
Yeah. I do hope it brings back some normalcy. I would really like for buyers to have a little bit more time because my whole theme of my YouTube page and my kind of mantras are take time to think about it. It helps you make better decisions. This is a big one. And if you have time to process how to purchase or even to process how to sell, what happens when we get into these compressed markets is people just don't have enough time to think. And then they find themselves in a position that, they're just not happy with. Either they bought a house that it wasn't quite right, or they've sold their house because they got really worried, and then they realized maybe they shouldn't have sold that house, and now they can't go back.
Right. Yeah. Now, I just wanted to add something to that. I just did a video on my YouTube channel. It's coming out next week, and it's about should you sell your house in 2022? And my point of that video is if you're going to sell your house, because you need to, then yeah, now's the time to do it. But don't just put it on the market to test the market, because you're hearing everybody saying, oh, I could get so much money for my house now, and let's see what I can get. Because you're messing with people's lives. This is what I say in the video. I'm like, you're messing with people. You're messing with buyers who desperately need a house. Because I see in those situations, if a seller just said, oh, let me just test the market and see what happens, and then they'll get an offer that they feel like they can't refuse, then they're in panic mode. They have nowhere to go. There's no other houses to buy right now. And then a lot of times they end up pulling out. They end up canceling the deal. And then this buyer got their hopes up. They need a house, and now you're backing out because you're like, oh, you know what? I really don't want to sell anyway, or I have nowhere to go. So now I'm not going to sell it. I think people need to understand that if you're going to sell, like, get a plan in place, make sure you have another place to go to. Don't just go out there and test the market. That drives me nuts. I'm sorry. Because you're messing with the real estate agents. We're putting all this time and effort in, and the buyers. It's so emotional for the buyers. So
that's a difference. So here, when you sign a contract, sellers are really locked in. It's very hard to get out of a contract here as a seller.
It's not. Well, here's the thing. We have in New Jersey, so we have once we have an accepted offer, we have an attorney review process, which takes about 3 days. Sometimes it could go a little bit longer. And what happens is they can back out during that period. Buyer seller can walk away. Then we go under contract, right? And then once you're under contract, that's when we do the inspection contingency. During the inspection contingencies, the deal could fall apart. The seller can say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to fix anything. And with the hopes that the buyer is just going to say, forget it and walk away. But I have heard of sellers having remorse. I heard of a situation last year, an agent in one of our other Coldwell Banker offices, she had a house under contract. They were maybe like 3 weeks away from closing. The sellers were so emotional. They're like, you know what? We can't sell this house. We can't do it. And they backed out. They pulled out. I'm like,
wow.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. So you can, in New Jersey, you can. Now listen, we use attorneys in New Jersey. So you can, for whatever reason you can, but it could come at a cost. Now, this buyer can turn around and say, well, I want you to reimburse me for my inspection cost and the appraisal and that stuff. They can do that. And then obviously the buyer will get their deposit back. But pretty much it's a very buyer-friendly state in New Jersey. So if a buyer wanted to back out, it's pretty easy for both parties, but especially for the buyer. If they're not comfortable, if they're not happy, they can walk away. Say if they're not happy with the inspection report, they can cancel the deal.
Wow.
So
we used to have that. We used to. We just
really no more.
Yeah. No, not really.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty much when you buy it, no contingencies, even if you have a loan and an appraisal.
Really?
That's the trick. Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow.
And and it really happens even if a house has been sitting for 12, 14 days. It never fails that house will get a couple offers on however it digests into the market. So normally you'll always be competing against somebody. Somebody will always pop up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I wrote an offer last week. There was 10 offers. We came in second. I know we're second because of the numbers, the way they appeared. I kind of figured it out. The first one that came in that won was all cash. We actually even only had a small loan. And you know what? When it came down to it, she's like, I don't think that was really the house for me anyway. So she was okay with it. But it was 10 offers, countered for, no contingencies.
Oh my God. See, we're not doing so much with the no contingencies anymore. So people were waiving the inspection, waiving appraisal, saying they're going to cover the gap, the appraisal gap and everything. That's, even though we're still in the seller's market and we still have bidding wars going on, they're not going that crazy over the contingency, especially the home inspection. And I tell all my buyers, if you're going to do anything, just do the inspection to look for, structural, environmental, mechanical. And that's pretty standard. But there were people that were just flat out waiving inspections last year. And one of my clients did that, and sure enough, they had issues with the house after they closed. So I
Well,
don't
we
recommend that.
provide them up front, so it's not like it's not that they don't get them. Everything's provided up front. All the disclosures and reports are given to them.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
listing I just had that we got a no contingent offer on was home inspection, pest inspection, roof, sewer lateral, which is required here. Some work that needed to be done, but it's like this work needs to be done. We're not doing it, but here it is. So it's not that they write them with no information.
Okay.
We give it to them.
See, here's the thing. We have disclosures. It's not mandatory in New Jersey. You have to provide a seller's disclosure. My issue with seller's disclosure is it says right there, if you don't know the answer, you just don't know the answer. And sometimes they do know the answer and they're just not going to put that on a disclosure. So we can't fully rely on that, right? So this deal that I have going on, I'm closing on in 2 weeks. My buyers had an inspection done and there were issues with the roof, and there was something else, something in the basement. I can't remember offhand, but we went back and said, there's a lot of money that was going to be needed to make these repairs. And they were not like the sellers were reasonable. Initially my buyers asked for a lot of money and I was like, oh my God, you're not getting that. You're not getting the credit back on that. You crazy.
You're not getting that much.
It's like, you're not getting that much back. But they tried it. Their attorney was like, look, we could always ask and see what they come back with. So they ended up settling. They renegotiated the price and the sellers came down. But my point is, they put on like, on their disclosure, okay, we repaired this one part of the roof. The roof never leaked. They never did, that's it. But the inspection told us that there was 2 layers of shingles, one of them being cedar shingle that was underneath the regular shingles. And then they said the guy was like, the shingles are going to fly off of this roof. Like, do you need a whole new roof? And then when they got the quote for the price of the roof, they're like, oh my God, this is going to be ridiculous. So yeah. So that's why we do the home inspections no matter what. We can't rely on disclosures. Just can't do it.
Absolutely.
And I will not allow my clients to skip the inspection. And when they're like desperate, like, oh no, we don't need you to, like, no, you do. Just trust me. So you're going to be spending a lot of money if you buy this, and there's going to be problems. So
I've been known to buy a few in my career.
Really?
You're not going to do it? I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I've been doing this a long time. So, I mean, I don't have it. I think I'm better at communicating, no, you really need to do this. And I think early on, I wasn't really as good at really convincing people that they needed to do it. So shortcutting, I just did it. So tell me, how does it work? Who pays the attorney? Tell me how this part works. Cause it's just us. We have kind of our broker to help us kind of navigate if we have questions or issues, but it's pretty much us just writing the contract and negotiating it. What does the process look like on your side?
Each side, seller and buyer, are represented by their own attorneys, and they pay those attorneys individually. So the cost for the attorney here is about, I've seen attorneys as little as $700, and I've seen them as much as $1,500. It all depends, on what their level of expertise. And, honestly, I would say on average, you're going to spend about $1,200 on an attorney. I think it's worth it. But it's, we also work well with the attorneys too, the real estate agents. We're involved with the process. The attorneys also rely on us with, getting all the information to them. And there's one attorney I have a great relationship with. I have no problem calling him up and give him a heads up, like, here's what happened in the inspection. This is what we're thinking of asking for, and it's good. I have good communication with these attorneys, and they've been very good to me. They're very good to a lot of the agents, because you have to work together as a team. You have to. Are there those attorneys, a little bit of an ego, and they want to do the whole thing themselves? There are, and they'll leave you out of the process. I've had that happen, but yeah, so that's how it works here in Jersey. But it's funny, South Jersey, they're not required to have an attorney. You can, but it's not required. Up here in North Jersey, it is, and New York also. It's like I'm right on the border of New York State. Isn't that funny?
That is
Yeah.
so interesting. Now we don't. It's kind of the Wild West out here. I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I think
that's
I've
it.
gotten a skill set that I feel very comfortable. But when I first started, it's just terrifying what
Yeah.
you could get into in terms of trouble.
You see, that makes me nervous too. Like, I don't know if I could do that. I'd rather defer to the attorneys. Like, if anything comes up, I'll also go to them and say, ask a question like, can we do this? Is this legal? Or what grounds do they have right now? If they want to walk away or whatever. So yeah, that makes me nervous. I'll be honest with you to do it all myself. Like, I don't want anybody coming after me after the fact.
Yeah. I think I do a good enough job, but yeah, when I first started, it is pretty scary. People could come after you, and it depends on the brokerage. Coldwell Banker, we have attorneys that our broker will consult with and then consult with us. So we have kind of people behind. Yeah, we have people that, like, I can call him and then he'll go, okay, let me run it up the chain, and then he'll talk to those attorneys and get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that here. I think my skill set's pretty decent now, but yeah, I started with a couple brokerages that were pretty much like, well, you probably shouldn't do that because you're going to get in trouble. And it's like, really?
Okay.
And then we have,
oh my God.
We've had, when I first started the first couple of years, my broker said, oh, well, why don't you have them call this attorney? And they called this attorney, and the attorney wanted to just be so smart that they totally told us we wrote the contract wrong. We did everything wrong, totally talked the client out of it.
Oh God.
Yeah. Because you know what? They're not the adversaries they were. They used to be really, well, the realtors are just trying to screw you. And, now it's like, they realize that these people really want to buy houses, and it's really their job to help them understand the process.
Yeah.
And, and every once in a while people go, should I call an attorney? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our contract was written by attorneys. I'm not afraid. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
But I did. I have a gal attorney. She told that gal how badly I wrote that contract and how bad the contract was, and talked her out of the house.
Oh my God.
And she didn't get it. And I don't think that woman ever bought. She was so scared of everything. She was just a very scared person, but she scared her. And so, yeah, attorneys have not always been our friend.
Oh, that stinks. I mean, but there are like the first office I worked at when I got into the business, I'll never forget my broker telling me, he says, attorneys kill deals. He always warned me of that. He goes, they'll kill deals because they think they know it all, and they're going to convince the client, now this is wrong, or they'll make us look bad. Not all the time. Like, I have a select few that I will refer to my clients because I know we'll get the job done. They're not going to badmouth me. They're not going to make them feel stupid, because I've had that before too. An attorney, the client will call me up and he's like, am I stupid here? Like, tell him he thinks I shouldn't do this, or this is a stupid move. I'm like, it's egos. Sorry. It's just this bad thing called ego that gets in the way. So
I've had home inspectors kill deals too, wanting to be the smart guy in the room.
Yep.
And there's one, in fact, his name just came up recently, and somebody who's been around for a while just hadn't really ran into him and said, well, what do you think? And I said, he kills deals, and he has no bedside manner, but he's thorough. So it depends. You have to measure this out. This guy will get every single thing, but his delivery, he delivered one time. I want to say a broken burner on a stove, and managed to turn it into the house filling up with gas and burning down.
Oh my God.
That kind of delivery of, well, we could just have someone come in and fix it. I just had a client recently, her and her friend was just looking up on a manual and figured out how to fix the stove in a matter of minutes. It was no big deal. Talking to this guy, it's going to burn the whole house down.
Oh my God.
So yeah, there's a lot. And, you want to make sure that your buyer gets good information.
Yep.
It's not the point to keep it away from them, but at the same time, there's a delivery, like I call it bedside manner.
Yeah. Yeah, or you don't want them to be an alarmist. Like if I'm going to work with an inspector, do not be an alarmist. And the guy that I use frequently, the reason I hired him is because I saw him one of his Facebook posts. He said that he did an inspection for these buyers who lost out on I think it was two houses prior because the inspector they were using were pointing out things that were like they were minor, but he blew them up, like you're saying with the burner on a stove, right? And they finally hired him and they brought him on board and they saw these things and he's like, no, you don't have to. That's not a big deal. This is all you have to do to fix this and whatever. So when I heard his story, I'm like, this is who I need. Like, thank God. So he's been amazing. And and if he finds something, what I love about him, if he thinks something's really bad, he's very much like in a nice way. He'll be like, yeah, I don't know if we should buy this house. Like, he's not like, oh my God, walk away. And like, he says it in a nice way. Like, yeah, this isn't good. I wouldn't do this. Or, yeah, the electrical here is bad. I wouldn't do it. Like he's got good bedside manners. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
he's got good bedside manners. Yes.
I'm not trying to find somebody who sugarcoats stuff and whitewashes stuff.
No, you want them to be honest, but then don't be an alarmist and blow things out of proportion. So
yeah, I have a pest inspector who I've worked with since the very beginning, and about 3 or 4 times he's like come out of the crawl space underneath the house, and he has this look on his face.
Oh.
And I'll tell my clients, both on buyer and seller side, I'll say, I can read him. I don't need him to even tell me where we're going to have problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a few where, we had to really deal with some damage. Because we don't have lead-based paint here, termites love California because we're wet and dry.
Uh-huh.
So we get the wood wet. And then we get it dry. So we're just like a smorgasbord here. And so termite problems have really increased in the last,
Really?
Yeah. In my career, just because it's just really kind of come down the pike that those regular paints that are more that they don't care about have really come on. And now the lead is kind of going away.
Mm-hmm.
The termite damage is just huge. And then we have years where we're just so wet and then so dry.
Wow. See, I had no idea. I didn't think that was an issue out there. Like,
my gosh.
Learn something new. I mean, we have them here, but not as bad. Like I rarely, I maybe 1 or 2 houses that we've had termite damage. Nothing like really bad where there was a structural issue, but yeah, we don't have termites that badly here. Wow.
Our older houses, mine is redwood. They don't like redwood, but
oh,
yeah,
okay.
They don't like redwood. They don't really like fir either, which is there's some trees they just don't really like, but those materials aren't being used as much as the composite stuff now, which is really yummy.
Yeah.
What reports do you get
for when we're going through the transaction?
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Oh, you mean the inspection? Okay. So we'll do inspection and radon.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody does the radon test out here. There are a number of homes that will test high for radon. And if that happens, then the seller has to put in a mitigation system to get the radon out of the house. It doesn't cost that much. It's like, I don't know, it's like $1,800 to put one of those systems in. But that's the biggest thing is the radon. We also have septic. We have a lot of houses out here in North Jersey on septic and private well. So we'll have that test done as well. And the latest thing I'm seeing, which you just said that's required in California, we're doing the sewer line test where they're running the camera through the sewer line. This house I'm going to be closing on in a couple weeks. My clients did the sewer line test, which I agreed with because the house is over 100 years old and they want to make sure the pipe, the pipe was good because there were trees in the yard and God only knows if there were roots in it, but it was fine. It was clay piping, I think like the first 15 feet and then the rest was whatever it is, iron
Whatever
or
it
whatever
needs to be.
yeah, whatever the metal
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it turned out to be fine. But I think this is like a new thing now that people are testing sewer lines.
Yeah, here in town, we have clay, and then we have a type of paper from post-war. From that,
Really?
yeah. So they'll find, or actually they'll find remnants of it, but basically they'll find nothing. I don't know how much they're finding it lately. I haven't really talked to my sewer guy about that. But when the ordinance first came about, we were talking about what they were finding because we were going to a lot of meetings about it. But now we do it as a point of sale. We can pass it back to the buyer, which is more common now just because of how hot the market is. And then depending on how extensive the work is really extensive. Often the seller will go ahead and just get it done because it could keep the price down or keep multiple offers away. So it just depends. But,
right. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's coming. It's probably Northern California has been doing it a while. It just kind of came to us in the last 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. And then lastly, we're just going to touch on the snow. You were going to tell me a little bit about your clients that came from California.
Yes. I actually have, well, I mentioned to you before, I have one family that moved out here. They were they lived in Valencia, California, which is outside of LA. And I just saw her the other day. I just saw the wife. We went out to lunch. And so I was asking her, like, how was it coming here? And that she has 2 boys, ages 13 and 11. So I was, like, how was everybody adjusting? And she said, we love it. They love the Northeast. And I said, well, what about the snow? She said, well, they had snow in the mountains of California. She said they would go tubing and stuff. But what I thought was interesting, because it's been really cold, she goes, it's funny. She's like, the cold to us here, she's like, coming from out there, she's like, I don't feel it as bad as you would probably feel it. Like, I don't know. It was hard for her to explain, but she's not like, when she was outside the other day, it was like 40 degrees and she didn't have a coat on. So she's like, I don't know, because you still got coming from the warmer weather out there. I mean, she said the cold really hasn't really affected them. And she said her boys are enjoying the snow. They love it. They also said that her oldest son kind of went into panic mode because he thought he wasn't going to be able to get his driver's license in Jersey till he was 18. I'm like, no, that's not it. So if you get a permit at 16, they get their license at 17. So she's like, oh, thank God. Because he's been hearing, like, I won't be able to drive to school till I'm a senior in high school. I'm like, well, that's true, but he'll get his license when he's 17. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean he can't, like, physically drive at all till he's 18. It's pretty funny. But so far they're loving being out here. It's pretty cool.
As far as the weather, my one comment is it might be easier for them to adjust because it's more consistent. So our days you can wake up to 35 degrees. And by 10 a.m. it's 60.
Yeah.
And by 4, it's 55. So you spend all day putting on and taking off clothes, and your body can barely adjust.
That's a good point.
And so if you're just cold all day long, then your body goes, okay, we're cold. Or if you're hot,
right.
But no. Today it's probably going to be in the high 60s. Next week we're supposed to be like high 70s, I think, next week.
Nice.
Then what'll happen is the season's going to change, and we're going to move into spring, and it's going to get freezing cold.
Really?
So, yeah.
Why does it get cold in the spring? Well, that's so crazy.
I mean, that's just being closer to the sun. So you're closer to the sun in the winter, and then in the spring you start to move away.
Right.
So you're not as hot.
Okay.
It's not as intense. So,
okay.
And then maybe the rain will move in, we're hoping. But yeah, I think I call it the land of layers because you just have to kind of layer up for your day. But going to school was such a nightmare. I had a backpack full of clothes, not books.
Oh, God.
By the end of the day, it was just, jackets and sweatshirts and scarves and everything. And you just have to Yeah.
See, that's funny because here now kids don't wear coats. Once they get to middle school, like there's no more jackets, no more coats. And I'm talking middle of the winter too, because that was the other thing my client said to me. She goes, nobody seems to wear coats in the winter here. I said, no, they don't. They don't. They just, and some kids in the middle of winter wear shorts to school. And I think it's because the buildings get so warm with the heat, they can't be bothered. Or like at the high school, my kids go to high school, their lockers are so small, I can't fit a coat in there. So they don't bother. It blows my mind. I'm like, aren't you cold? They're like, no, we're fine. My daughter works out in a sweatshirt, no problem.
Yeah, once you think about having to carry it around all day, all of a sudden you're not so cold.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Well,
yes.
Well, this has been fun. It's so fun to talk about how alike we are and how different we are. I just really, really enjoyed this. This is so fun.
Yeah, this was awesome, Michelle. Thank you. I really had fun.
I think I'll look you up after the summer and we can compare notes on our summer market. That should be really fun.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to do that. That'd be fun.
Awesome. Thanks again. And we'll talk to you soon.